that you want to save yourself from marriage, but he doesn't have that same conviction. They date or even possibly marry for potential rather than reality. If you overlook these things in a man while you're dating, you are headed for a very difficult time in marriage. First, a lot of women fear that if they don't give in to that man's sexual desires, that he's gonna leave. Before we met, my wife dated some guys that cheated on her. Now, speaking of the baggage and the pain of the past, something else I need to really discuss, ladies, and that's this. This is Jasmine, my wife Jennifer's AI twin avatar. What's up, Jasmine?
Hey, Brother Allen. Okay, real talk. Listen, a sister out here struggling. Do you hear me? I need help.
All right, bet. So in my last video, I talked about 5 dating mistakes Christian men need to stop making, and we helped this guy, Alonzo. So today, I'm gonna help this girl, Jasmine, by sharing with her and you 5 dating mistakes Christian women need to stop making. All right, let's jump right in. Mistake number 1, leading the relationship spiritually. Listen, I believe that God has called men to be the spiritual leaders of their home. But when you, the woman, have to be the one leading the man spiritually, it's backwards. Now, what might this look like? This may look like you, initiating devotions, initiating prayer time together, encouraging him to attend church together, serving together at church, or you may feel like you're always the one who has to maintain the healthy boundaries so that you all can stay sexually pure. In other words, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but you have the conviction that you want to save yourself from marriage, but he doesn't have that same conviction. So whenever you're strong, then he might be respecting your boundary, which once again, we'll talk about that in just a moment, but he doesn't have the same level of conviction. So you feel like you're always the one that's kind of having to set the boundaries, and he's kind of pushing things and pushing the envelope, if you will. If that is the case, you are more than likely leading the relationship spiritually. Here's another sign. When you have to consistently make excuses for his spiritual walk, either to yourself or other people, that's a red flag, which could indicate that you are leading that person spiritually. Now, the question I want you to ask yourself is this, and this is so important. If this brother never grows beyond where he is now, can I respect and still follow his leadership for life? All right, Jasmine, so what are your thoughts on mistake number 1 before I share mistake number 2?
Okay, wait. So I'm doing the praying, the planning, the purity talk, and he's just coasting? No, that's not leadership. That's laziness. I'm not his spiritual mama. I'm his partner. And if I have to lead now, I'll be leading later. And that's not the marriage I'm praying for. From now on, I'm stepping back to see if he steps up.
Jasmine, you got it. That's good. All right, now let's move on to mistake number 2. Compromising on spiritual maturity. Now, one of the reasons why many women do this is because they believe deep within that they have some divine power that enables them to change the brother. In other words, they date or even possibly marry for potential rather than reality. Listen, it's been said that men often marry women hoping they never change, but they often do, more than likely referring to the physical and all of that. Women marry men hoping they do change, and they often don't. Now, this is a general rule. I don't think it's necessarily 100%, but I think it's pretty much on point. So many Christian women, you have a checklist on what you will not compromise on, all right? So let me give you a few. A lot of Christian women, and I'm not saying you should compromise on these, but a lot of Christian women will not compromise on how much money the brother makes, right? You will not compromise on, in other words, that brother needs to be making some money. He needs to have good earning potential, or he needs to be in school, going to get a degree so that you can have confidence that you all will be financially secure and stable and all of that. It provide a good home for you and your future kids. So a lot of women won't necessarily compromise on that. Another one, Christian women, oftentimes don't want to compromise on is how good he is or how good you think he will be in the bedroom. We're going to get to that in just a moment. All right. Another one, swag and personality. Man, he got to have swag. He got to have personality. He got to be able to, he got to be able to carry himself in a certain way. He got to be smooth. He got to be debonair. He got to be able to dress real well and all that stuff. And I'm not saying that you need to compromise on that if that's what you want. I'm just saying these are things oftentimes that women have made up in their mind. I will not compromise on these things, but somehow or another, the one area that is the most important, far superior to all of the other areas, which is his spiritual maturity, somehow or another, a lot of women will end up compromising in this area, but not in others when this area is the absolute most important. Listen, what I've seen over and over again is a woman who wants to be married so badly that as long as the brother says, I believe in God, or I pray, or I'm spiritual, or he says he has his quote unquote own relationship with God, you check the box that he's a Christian, but you don't see the other fruit that would prove that he is truly walking with God. Let me give you a few indicators. Does he pray for you? Does he pray with you? Does he spend regular time with God? Does he even talk to you about his time with God? Does he have a devotional life? Does he ever mention his devotional life with you? Does he ever talk to you about what he's studying and what God has shown him as he's spending time with God? Does he exhibit the fruit of the Spirit, right? Does he attend church regularly, or do you have to push him to go to church? Does he have accountability in his life? Does he have other brothers in his life that he's given the permission to speak into his life that he has made himself accountable to, so that whenever you get married to this person and the brother starts tripping, and by the way, women need to have this as well, that you can go to these brothers and you can say, hey, Brother Alonzo is tripping. You need to go get your boy. You need to talk to him. And Alonzo has already given these men permission to speak into his life. Listen, is he showing tangible signs of spiritual growth? Is he growing? I'm not saying he has to be perfectly mature, but is he on the path? Is he showing you that he is serious about even trying to grow spiritually? Is he teachable? Because if a brother has a teachable spirit, then you can have confidence that he is going to ultimately get to a place of better spiritual maturity. Here's another one. Does he truly understand and believe in the gospel, right? You need to ask him that. You need to ask him, what's the gospel? Do you know the gospel, right? Make sure he can clearly communicate it and he agrees with it. Here's another one. Does his theology line up with yours? Now, here's a good one. Does he give faithfully to his local church? That's a great indicator, because I can tell you a man who doesn't have a relationship with God is probably not giving his hard-earned money to the church. Here's another one. Does he take initiative to lead you in spiritual matters? Maybe it's conversation, maybe it's prayer, maybe it's couples devotion, maybe it's serving together, whatever it is, right? Does he take the initiative to lead you in those ways? Here's a good one you want to pay attention to. How does this brother handle his anger when he's put in places where he's being challenged or under pressure or disappointed, or somebody bothers him a certain way? How does he handle that? And finally, is he truly committed to sexual purity, or is he just quote unquote respecting your boundaries because he knows how important it is to you and he doesn't want to lose you? Don't worry. We're going to get to that in just a moment. So ladies, take it from me. Trust me on this. I promise you, if you overlook these things in a man while you're dating, you are headed for a very difficult time in marriage. And I can tell you that because so many women, we're on this thread right now, are probably commenting in the comment section, will be able to tell you, yeah, I overlooked all of that. And my husband and I are not equally yoked. And now I'm in a situation where I can't get out of it, right? You've heard me say this before. People think that the worst thing in the world is waiting to be married. But no, the only thing worse than waiting is later on wishing that you had. You don't want to be in that situation. And the reason why it's so important is because the challenge will be this. If you are growing spiritually How can you follow a man who isn't? I can tell you that it's ultimately going to lead to conflict after conflict, which is why the Bible encourages us to be equally yoked. And no, I do not believe that that is just for Christians and non-Christians. I do think that there is an application for two Christians as well. When you settle, ladies, on the issue of spiritual maturity, I can tell you more often than not, what happens is your spiritual life will suffer rather than you being the one to help him grow. So, Jasmine, what is your take on all of this?
So he says he believes in God, but don't pray, don't grow, don't go to church. Sis, that ain't faith. That's familiarity. Listen, I'm not dating a man's potential. I'm looking at his pattern. If he's not walking with God now, I'm not about to play Holy Spirit and hope he catches up later. I need fruit, not just faith talk.
All right, Jasmine, I see you. All right, you're getting it. All right, you and Alonzo are very, very good and quick learners, by the way. All right, now let's move on to mistake number 3. Compromising your standards sexually to keep the man. Oh, we're going to camp out here for some time, my sisters. Yeah, we need to talk about it. All right, so a lot of Christian women have made up in their mind that they want to remain pure. In your mind and your heart, you want to remain pure. This is a commitment for you. This is a value for you. This is a priority for you. You want to honor God with your bodies. But what happens is when they fall in love and their emotions get all engaged and their heart and gets all kind of mixed up, unfortunately, they are oftentimes, not all the time, but sometimes they are willing to compromise that commitment to purity. And here are some of the reasons why. First, a lot of women fear that if they don't give in to that man's sexual desires, that he's going to leave, right? So in other words, some women believe that if they meet a man's sexual needs, then he most certainly will not leave them because in their minds, it's a security blanket. Why would the brother leave when I'm giving him everything he wants? Another reason that they give in is a lot of times women mistake physical touch and lust for love. In other words, because this brother is physical and he's affectionate and he constantly tells you how beautiful you are, you misunderstand and misinterpret and think that that means that he loves you, maybe because you did not hear that enough, or maybe you don't have a lot of affection in your life, or I don't know, but you interpret that as he loves you. And as a result, you give in because after all, this brother loves me. And that oftentimes can be a very, very significant indicator that there's something else going on behind the scenes that you need to deal with that might be from your past or whatnot. Here's another one that we need to talk about. We need to talk about this one. She wants to test drive the car before she buys it. Yeah, we're going to talk about this. All right. Now, most men aren't as concerned about whether a woman will be able to meet their needs sexually after marriage. All right. That's typically not a huge concern for men in their minds. As long as she's beautiful and she's open and things like that, that's good. All right. But you'd be surprised. It may not be a lot of you. I understand some of you are like, oh, I would never think that. All right. Well, God bless you. All right. But there's a lot of women out there. You'd be surprised. A lot of them are. And maybe because they've had bad experiences in the past, they just want to make sure that the brother measures up, literally. All right. They want to make sure that the brother knows how to handle his business. All right, look, we all adults here. All right. So I'm just going to be real and be raw and be honest. There's a lot of women that they need to know what they're dealing with, what they're working with before they commit their entire lives to. And that's not a good reason. That's not trusting God, right? That's not putting your faith in God. Ladies, I'm just going to shoot straight with you. Oftentimes when you give yourself to a man sexually, what it does, you may not realize it, but it significantly lowers his motivation to want to marry you. Because for some men, he's already getting his primary needs met without having to marry you. So what would be his motivation to want to marry you or marry you anytime soon, right? The brother can have his own independence. He can do his thing. He can come and go. He can get his physical needs met by you without having to marry you. He's got the best of both worlds, right? You've heard the saying, why buy the cow when you got the milk at home? Not only that, when you give yourself to a man sexually while dating, you will now have to wonder whether he's sticking around truly because he loves you or because you're giving him what he wants. Sisters, I want to challenge you to do something. Shut the shop down. All right, close up shop, take that away, and see how long the brother stays around. And what you're going to do is you are going to force him to either put a ring on it because he knows that if he, because he wants you so bad, he knows that the only way I can get what I want is now to put a ring on it, which first of all, that's not a good motivation for wanting to get married, but that will force him to either do that or he won't be down for waiting at all, which is going to reveal to you that he does not love you or God the way you need him to. Notice I didn't say he doesn't love God. I said he doesn't maybe love God perhaps the way you need him to. So Jasmine, give us some thoughts on this.
Look, if I have to give up my purity to keep him, then I was never really keeping him. He was keeping me compromised. If a man won't wait with me, he's not ready to walk with me. Not into marriage, not into purpose, not into God's plan. I'm not getting husband benefits to a boyfriend with no ring and no fruit.
Once again, you spot on. All right, let's move on to mistake number 4. This one is huge, and that is looking for a man to meet all of your emotional needs. Listen, I'm going to be a little bit more tender, a little bit more pastoral with this one, because this one is very, very sensitive and tender for a lot of women. Listen, depending on your dating history and your childhood as a woman, you may have experiences that have impacted you negatively. Maybe it's trauma, maybe it's abuse, maybe it's rejection. And as a result, this has led to maybe feelings of low self-esteem, feeling like you're damaged goods. It could lead to all kinds of different feelings. And these experiences are very, very painful. And as a result, they create baggage. Let's be honest about it, okay? We're all adults here. We can call it what it is. It's baggage. We all have it. And we've all brought a certain level of baggage into our relationship. And if you're not careful, you will look for this man to meet all of the unmet emotional needs that you have as a result of your baggage. Now, some of them he will and should be able to meet, but others only God can meet. And if there is extreme hurt and pain in your past, I can tell you that no man anywhere will be able to heal you from that. Yes, God can bring a godly man into your life to help aid it, but ultimately the healing must come from God. So if you aren't intentional about healing from the past relational wounds, childhood drama, issues from your past, mistakes, abuse, all of that, I can promise you that you are going to bring these into the relationship and it's going to negatively impact the relationship. And same goes for men. If they have issues, it's going to impact them. I talked about that in that video. But what's going to happen is you're going to project these issues onto the man you're dating and ultimately onto the man you're married to. Now, I'm going to share this. Something with my wife's permission that she gave me permission to share. Before we met, my wife dated some guys that cheated on her. And this ultimately caused her to lose trust in men, right? She got to a point where she thought, well, maybe this is just what men do. They just cheat, right? So when we met, Brother Allen was guilty until proven innocent. I had to work hard to prove to her that I wasn't like other men she had dated before me. Now, speaking of the baggage and the pain of the past, there's something else I need to really, really discuss, ladies, and that's this. It's very important for you to be transparent about these experiences with the man if they are a part of your past. I'm not saying that you need to spill everything, and I'm not saying that you need to do this on the first date, second date, third date, fourth date. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, which is the reason why I said in the men's video that if the man can create a safe space for you, letting you know that the relationship is going somewhere, that's going to hopefully give you the safety, the feeling that you can share these things. But if there's something in your past that you know you would want to know if you were on the other side and you choose to hide it, that's deceit. And what you don't want is for you to hide something significant about your past. You end up getting married, and your husband then finds this out about you later after he's already put a ring on it, right? And now he feels like, well, man, how come you weren't open and vulnerable with me? How come you didn't tell me this before? And in your mind, you're saying, well, I wanted to, but you're thinking if I tell this thing to this man, then he might leave me because I don't think I can be fully known and fully loved. So therefore, I'm going to keep this thing, this mistake or this experience in my life to myself. But what type of security does that provide for you in a relationship? Because now you're always going to be in a relationship where you're thinking, man, how is this person going to feel after I share this? How much greater would you feel if you put all your cards out on the table, let that man think about it, pray about it, and then when he comes back and he says, I can't deal with it, at least you know now. But if he comes back and says, you know what? I see your baggage. Here's mine. It's not too much for me. I can deal with it. I still love you. How much more would that make you feel? How much better would that make you feel, rather, to know, wow, this guy really knows me. He knows all of my scars, all of my baggage, and yet he still loves me anyway. That's what you want. So Jasmine, what are your thoughts about that?
Okay, so I brought my baggage, my brokenness, and my unhealed wounds and expected him to fix it all. Yeah, that's not love, that's pressure. A godly man can support my healing, but only God can complete it. He's not my savior, he's supposed to be my partner. I'm doing the healing before the dating, not during.
Jasmine, I totally agree with you. All right, here's the fifth and final mistake. Losing yourself in the relationship. Listen, one big mistake that many Christian women make is when they start dating a man, they become all about that man. Their entire focus is on the man and the relationship, once again, oftentimes at the expense of their own life, their own goals, their own dreams, their own ambition, their own life. Listen, most men, I can tell you, do not want a woman who is quote unquote clingy. She's just always around you. She has no life outside of you. We don't want that. Most men don't want that. A godly man will respect a woman who has her own thing going on, but yet still allows or finds room to fit him in, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. So if you were building a business before you met him, you need to keep building that business. Keep doing that. If you were playing in a tennis league, keep doing that. If you were active in your church, you better keep doing that, right? Make sure that you are a full individual that does not lose yourself in the relationship, because the best relationships are when both people in the relationship have a very full life apart from one another, and they both come together to create an even better life by exposing their partner to their life, their interests, their dreams, their hobbies, their friends, and basically everything that they're about. All right, so how do you know whether you are losing yourself in the relationship? All right, let me give you some indicators. Number one, constantly changing your schedule around to fit what he wants you to do. All right. Your schedule now revolves around his. In other words, maybe you have things planned and you start canceling those things when he asks you to do something, or you hesitate to plan something in the future, even though he hadn't reached out to you, he hadn't said anything, but you want to leave yourself available for him just in case he asks you to spend time together. Look, You don't want to, ladies, check this out. You want him to feel like it's a privilege for him to fit into your schedule. All right, I'm not trying to say you need to play cat and mouse and play hard to get. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, don't rearrange your life around him. Make him earn it. Make him prove to you, make him pursue you, make him prove to you that he's worthy to be in your life. Here's another one. Here's another indicator. Other significant relationships begin to suffer. All right, now, when you get into a relationship, yes, you are now going to have to split your time between those other relationships and this brother. All right, but other relationships should still be a priority for you. Here's another indicator. You don't express how you truly feel about something in fear that if he disagrees, he may leave. So what you do is you go along with things, even if it conflicts with how you really feel about it. Your values, things that you want to do, things that he says or whatever. You become all about him. You're losing yourself. Now you're losing your values and your standards and your norms. Here's another one. Your emotions rise and fall based on the attention he gives you or does not give you. When he gives you a lot of attention, your life is great. You feel good because it's all wrapped up in him. But when he does not give you that attention, you have no type of identity at all because your whole identity is wrapped up in how he sees you. Here's another one. Your relationship with God begins to drift. Listen, ladies, you want to be with a man who pushes you closer to God than he does himself. You should be looking for someone who can help you get closer to God, not pull you further away. All right, so Jasmine, what are your thoughts on mistake number 5?
Whew, been there. I made him my whole world and forgot who I was. My schedule, his. My priorities, his. My peace, gone. But no more, sis. I've got a calling, dreams, purpose, and the right man will fit into that, not erase it. I'm not shrinking to keep a man. I'm staying whole for the one who sees my worth.
My sister, I think you need to start your own YouTube channel. All right. So speaking of that, Jasmine, do you have any final parting words you want to share with the ladies?
So ladies, the goal isn't just to be chosen. It's to be cherished, led, and aligned with God's best. Don't lower your standards just to keep a man. Elevate your walk so the right one can rise to meet you. And trust me, when you wait on God, you won't have to force what's meant to flow.
All right, that was such great wisdom. So ladies, I hope and pray that you heed the words of Jasmine and the advice I shared with you on this video, and I hope it helps you date in a way that honors God. And don't forget, guys and girls, if you haven't seen the video about 5 dating mistakes Christian men need to stop making, the link will be in the description. You're going to want to watch that video next. All right, I'll see y'all in the next video. Let me know in the comments if you like me incorporating Jasmine and Alonzo, and I'll do it again soon. Bye for now.